This is Talk Business and Politics with Roby Brock.
Welcome to the program. I'm Roby Brock. Thanks for joining us. In Arkansas's capital city of Little Rock, there have been headlines for all the wrong reasons. A week ago, a nightclub shooting that injured 28 and miraculously left no one dead has been the catalyst for state and federal intervention. Statistically, anecdotally, politically, citizens and elected officials are saying enough is enough, but what will happen next? State Representatives Fred Allen and Andy Davis, both of Little Rock, are here to join me for a conversation. Thank you both for being here.
Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you for having us.
Let's talk about what's at the root of this violent crime in Little Rock, in the capital city here. Is it lack of jobs, lack of education? Are we losing the war on drugs? Are we losing the war on gangs? Do we have a communication problem between law enforcement and the community? Fred, what's at the root of all this?
I think it's a combination of everything you just mentioned. I think one of the things that we got to look at is whenever we have a lot of crime escalating in communities around the city and around metropolitan areas, you will see there are some deficiencies with the educational system. And I think right now there are some problems with our educational system. I think there are some problems with parenting. I think it's just a combination of things. But every crime that's committed and although crime is escalating in the city, it's fixable. Everything is fixable.
You think it's fixable?
I think it's fixable.
All right. What do you think's at the root of all of this?
All of the above, Roby. I mean, fortunately, it's a horribly complicated problem, but, you've got people in all phases of life, and you've got young people where it's education, you've got people who have already committed crimes and they're in the parole system, and we've got to address that, and shortages there, and high caseloads, and then you've got people that are kind of in between, and they're almost like a crime waiting to happen. All those things play a factor. Education plays a factor. Work plays a factor. One of the biggest things we've got to start doing is getting our people when they're young and teaching them to make better choices. We've got to give them options one, and then we got to teach them how to pick the better option.
Yeah, Fred says it's fixable, but is it fixable quickly? Is it quickly fixable? Because what I hear you guys talking about seems to me more like a generational type change.
Well, some of it's generational, but I think there are some things that we can do. I think the first thing that we need to do, I think the community needs to take ownership. I think all the elected officials, the ministers, sororities, all these organizations need to say, hey, we own this. And once we own it, we need to come to the table with a solution.
What does that mean, though? Because, I'm a citizen of Little Rock, and I do my part. I raise my kids right. I pay my taxes. I'm a good corporate citizen. I'm a good public citizen. I'm not a part of the problem. I'm a victim of some of the problems. But what does that mean to bring everybody to the table and own this?
Well, I told the governor the other day, you can do all the right things. Christ did all the right things and ended up on the cross. So you can still do all the right things and end up a victim. But what needs to happen is that people like you and others need to come to the table and help resolve this problem. Because you can't sit back and say, well, it's not in my neighborhood, but guess what? Crime come to your neighborhood.
Sure,
it may not be in your neighborhood.
Well, and I'm around the city too.
You're around the city, and people will, just like it's in our neighborhood, it can come to your neighborhood.
How do you take ownership?
Well, everybody's got to take a little bit of ownership, right? But ultimately the responsibility, I think, falls squarely on the city of Little Rock and the elected officials in the city of Little Rock. My voters want to know when I make a mistake and as an elected official, how do they hold me accountable? Voters in the city of Little Rock right now want to know, who do we hold accountable? We didn't just have one incident. We had one incident. Thank God there weren't 25 fatalities. But in the same week, we had eight other shootings.
We sure did.
We're not just talking crime, we're talking shootings in 1 week, in addition to what happened at the nightclub. The city of Little Rock, in my opinion, has really got to reevaluate their focus and where they're spending their resources and their time. They've really got to pay more attention, and they've got to show the citizens of Little Rock that we realize this is a big deal and this is an emergency, and we are adjusting and changing things to address it.
Well, this is a statewide problem too, because this is the city.
This is the capital city.
This is the capital
That's
city.
right. Also, what we need to understand, in order for law enforcement to resolve crimes, they have to have a relationship with the community. If there's no relationship between law enforcement and the community, there's no way they can resolve crimes. In other words, the community doesn't trust law enforcement, and a lot of times law enforcement see African Americans and they say he's a bad person, and everybody's not bad. So there's got to be a better relationship between the community and law enforcement.
Better relationship, but it takes time to build that relationship, and until the city puts the needed number of officers in the communities, they don't have enough time to meet people and develop those relationships. They've got to have the flexibility in their schedules and in their patrol and whatnot to be able to stop. If they're all the time responding to things, they never get to stop and have a conversation and get to know the people.
Get to be proactive. So are you guys advocating leadership change at the city level? Just this morning, we've had one of your colleagues, Representative Warwick Sabin, announced that he's going to explore a run for mayor of Little Rock. Does there need to be a change in the mayor's office? Does there need to be a change at the city board level? Does there need to be a change in law enforcement leadership?
I think the mayor is doing a good job. That's my personal opinion. Crimes like this could happen on anybody's watch. If you look at what last year this time, we didn't have this. So now we have an outbreak of violence in the community. So whenever you have an outbreak of violence in the community, people start pointing fingers. Sure. But I think what needs to happen, I think that we need to be a little bit more aggressive. And the thing that bothers me is that if we don't bridge that relationship between the community and African American in the police department, I think eventually we're going to be just one bullet away from a Ferguson. Because if people see the police as being aggressive, and then some see it as being police brutality. So that's a thin line that we got to walk.
What you're worried about. All right, we got to take a quick commercial break. We're going to come back and talk about a couple other statewide issues. Representative Andy Davis, Representative Fred Allen, we are back right after this. Welcome back to Talk Business and Politics. I'm with Representatives Fred Allen and Andy Davis. Right before the break, I didn't give you a chance to respond to Representative Allen's statement there.
Well, you had asked if we thought we needed a leadership change at the city, and my response was going to be, I'm going to stop just short of calling for a change right now, but I will say that if there's not an adequate response from the leaders of the city of Little Rock, then there will be a call for change in the near future.
All right. Let's turn to some statewide politics. The state ended its fiscal year on June 30th, right before the July 4th holiday there. $15 million budget surplus, razor-thin budget surplus there. I would contend that there are still some state tax refunds that probably still have to come back. Are we out of the woods yet in terms of our financial picture? Andy, I come to you first on that, or should we watch July and August and see if they're a little rocky?
Well, this is going to be revised several times between now and probably October. So you may be right. There may be some refunds that still have to go out. We also have other changes going on that are affecting the revenue picture, including voluntary internet sales taxes that are being paid in now. I think the bright spot is that we've shown that we can reduce some spending, we can lower tax rates on Arkansans, and we can still meet the forecast and still fund the budget. So
without cutting services, Fred?
Well, yeah, we have to be careful that we not cut some of the services, because what we're talking about now, programs for poor people, those are the ones that get cut. Now, we just got through talking about crime, but if we continue to cut programs that benefit poor people and those that don't really have a voice at the table right now, crime will continue to rise in our community.
All right. We'll watch the state revenue forecast. We'll see what happens over the next 2 months or so. Last question, very quickly. A big issue up in Northeast Arkansas and up and down the Delta, the dicamba ban debate. You're on the Ag Committee, you used to be on the Ag Committee, but you're around farmers and y'all all know all this stuff. So did the state legislature and the governor make the right decision banning dicamba?
I think over time will tell if they made the right decision.
Oh, what a diplomatic political answer there.
I think, yes, they did make the right decision in banning dicamba. We can argue and we can debate about what is the cause of dicamba drift, but the bottom line is we know it occurs, and we know it causes significant damage to not just row crops, but lots of other things now we're learning. So I think the governor and the legislature did make the right move in upholding the ban that was recommended by the State Plant Board.
Should I be watching for a potential class action lawsuit at some point in time around this issue? Huh? Just the
Maybe.
cynic in me, maybe? All right.
Maybe.
Representative Andy Davis, Fred Allen, thank you both for being here. Very
Thank
much
you.
appreciate you.
Thank
you
you.
both.
Thank you.
All right. Medical marijuana and healthcare reform are on the docket next. Wes Brown, Jessica Deloach Sabin, and Robert Kuhn join me right after this.